welcome to another month of Kimberbell's Digital Deal Exclusives. I'm Jess with Quilt Beginnings, and I am so excited to get started with this month's project. We're going to be doing the Year 1 in a Melon Hot Pad. So I think it's just the perfect way to welcome in summer. And we're going to learn lots of techniques with paper piecing in the hoop. Yes, you can even do it with machine embroidery. We're also going to do some chenille and some quilting. It's just a fun, great project, and I think it's the perfect thing to welcome in summer. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so let's go ahead and pull out our kit and get ourselves set up so we can work on this project. So in your kit, you should have received one piece of stabilizer that's a medium cutaway. You'll also have a piece of batting. Then we're gonna have red fabric for the watermelon, a green fabric for the frame on the outside, then more of a lime green for our rind, and then a polka dot for our background, okay? And then you should have 3 black buttons, or white buttons. We did a mixture of polka dot, black, and white, so kind of fun. And then you should have a piece of the Kimberbell edge trim, okay? All right, and then in our instructions it says for embroidery thread colors, we're going to need red, white, light green, and black, okay? So I've got all those colors here. And then we should have our 4x4 hoop, because that's the size that is cut for the kit. And then I'll go over these tools a little bit later, okay? But let's go ahead and look at our instructions. I always like to print these off and have them right by me, okay? On page 3, it's just kind of a few general notes that you can look over. What the different icons mean, what thread colors you need, and then just some helpful tips, okay? So there's that, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and start sub-cutting the fabrics that are needed for the 4x4 size, okay? And Kimberbell made a note here that says, this project is intended for decorative use only. If we wish to use the hot pad for cooking purposes, they recommend using 1 layer of insulated batting in place of project batting, okay? So whatever you'd like, if you want to use it for cooking, or if you'd rather just have it for a decorative piece, there's that little note there for you, okay? But let's go ahead and start sub-cutting our fabrics. So we're all ready to go. I'll just put these to the side. Okay, so fabric 1 is obviously the background piece, which is already cut for you. So we'll just leave that. Fabric 2 is going to be the back and border pieces, which we gave you the lime green, the floral lime green, okay? All right, so we're gonna cut our green fabric now, and it wants us to cut at 5.5, and make sure it is 9 inches going widthwise, and then lengthwise is 11, okay? So 9 horizontal, 11 vertical. So we're gonna cut it at 5.5. All right. Then we're gonna cut this at 5.5 again. And those are gonna be our back pieces, okay? Then we're gonna take this strip right here and cut it at 1.5. Let's see here, 1.5. Then cut it again at 3. So you'll have two 1.5 inch strips. Then we're going to cut this at 5 and then at 10. Okay? So you should have 4 border pieces and then 2 background pieces. All right? All right, fabric 3 is the watermelon, which is this really cute red one, and it actually even says watermelon in it. It's cute. Okay? We're going to cut a 3.5 inch strip. There we go. 3.5. Okay. And let's go ahead and cut another 3.5. So 1, 2, 3.5. Okay. So we need another 3.5 inch square. Okay, so that's for the watermelon, and then the watermelon chenille, we're gonna need 3 more 3.5 inch squares. And I'm gonna go ahead and use this piece as well. Okay, so there's 2. Three. And 4. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and put this to the side. You should have 4 watermelon pieces. Okay, so our rind, we're gonna do, this is a 2x4 that we need to cut. So I'm just gonna cut this at 2 inches. Okay. And then that's it. That's all the cutting that we need to do for right now. Okay, we've already got our crocheted edge trim, the buttons, our background piece, and our batting. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and hoop our stabilizer. Okay, so you're gonna need a 4x4 hoop. All right, we're just going to unscrew this. Place our batting on top and then sandwich it in between and just tighten it till it's snug. Okay? All right. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and press our background pieces. It says to fold them in half, wrong sides together, and we're gonna press them. These are our backing pieces, okay? So just do that. I'll just take my iron and give it a good press. This is gonna create the envelope backing for our project. Okay. Those are pressed, and we'll just go ahead and set those to the side right now. That's all the prep work that we need to do. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and go over to our machine. We should have our design file loaded to the machine already. We hooped our medium cutaway stabilizer. Now we are on instruction step 4, and it says stitch the batting placement line directly on the stabilizer. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my project batting at the same time and head over to the machine. Okay, so for right now, we're just putting our stabilizer into the machine. We're not going to put any fabric on because it's going to stitch right on the stabilizer. Okay. And you can load it with a color of thread that's easy to see. I'm going to keep it white because I know it's going to be stitching my batting next, and so I don't have to do another thread change. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch the batting placement line. Okay, next you're going to take your piece of batting and you're going to place this right on top, making sure that it completely covers that placement line. And I'm just going to take 2 pieces of tape just to hold it in place. It now is going to stitch a template. For those of you who are familiar with English paper piecing, things like that. It's going to do a template for us in order to know where to place our next fabric, and it is just so much fun. Okay, so this is definitely the way to paper piece. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stitch out our template right onto the batting. All right, so the template that you see on here will look exactly like the template that they have on the instructions, okay? When they are working on a certain section of the template, it's going to be highlighted in gray. So I know right now we're going to be working with piece number 1, which is our background piece, okay? And then as you go on, you'll see piece number 2. That's going to be the top box right there. And then you'll just keep going on following the steps depending on which box is highlighted, okay? So we are on instruction step 7, and we're gonna place our background fabric piece right side up, making sure it completely covers that center square, okay? So I've got our background piece here. I'm going to place this right on top, making sure it completely covers. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch the tack down line. Okay, and they actually call this the trimming / placement line because we're now going to cut off the top of the fabric right here, okay? On instruction step 9, it wants us to cut above that sewn line, okay? And like I said, it's like paper piecing. It's going to be so easy. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our workstation, and we're going to trim the top of the fabric. Okay, I'm going to use my Kimberbell scissors here. All right. Flip this around, and we're gonna just cut off the top part only. Do not cut the bottom part. Okay, and we're just trimming close to that line. If you need to touch up in there, we can do that. All right. So you should only have cut off the top part of the fabric, okay, above that line. Now, we are on instruction step 10, and we're gonna take piece number 2, which is a border piece, okay? And we're gonna place the border piece to fabric right side down with edge centered along the placement line, okay? So I'm gonna flip this over, right side down. Gonna place this right along where we just barely stitched and kind of center it, okay? Then we're gonna return to the machine and it's gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam line right there, okay? Let's go to our machine. And go ahead and stitch the seam line. Okay, at this time it says to flip this open, flip it right side out, up, and press. However, where I have such a small hoop, I'm afraid my iron will touch the edge of my hoop and I don't want to risk damaging it. So there's actually this thing called the fabric folding pen, which is awesome. It's my favorite tool ever. It has a little bit of starch in it, so kind of like best press, for those of you who are familiar with that. And it helps relax the seam, and it seems as though it's already been pressed when you apply this. So I'm gonna show you here. I'll pull this out, take this, and I just run my pen along that seam, okay? Just right along there. Then I'm going to flip this open and just finger press. And look, it looks like I have already pressed it with an iron, okay? So I highly recommend it, especially when you're working on small projects, so you don't risk damaging your hoop with an iron. However, I even use this on the big hoops because it's my favorite thing ever, okay? So there's a little trick for you. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put this back into the machine. And for this step, it's going to do the bottom edge of the project, okay? So the exact same thing like we did at the top, we're now gonna do at the bottom. So we're gonna stitch the trimming placement line, then we're gonna cut the fabric close to that stitch line, place the border piece, stitch the seam, and then press open, okay? And we're gonna continue doing that all the way around the circle, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and stitch all those out, but now you know the method of how to do that, okay? Okay, so now we are going to stitch the rind of the project, okay? So we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna change my thread to green so I know exactly where to place my fabric. So I'm gonna go ahead and change that real quick. Remember to cut your threads at the top and pull from the bottom, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and stitch the rind placement line. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and place this down. Make sure it's right side up. And Kimberbell is very generous with the cutting directions in order to make sure it completely covers it, and then you have some room to grab the fabric to cut. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do the tack down line. All right, so we're gonna go ahead to our workstation and trim this up. All right, so we have that all trimmed up, and it's gonna go ahead and do a decorative stitch on the rind. And I like to have a different color of green so it really pops, okay? So play around with it and see what you like. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and do the placement line for the watermelon. So I'm gonna change my thread to red. Okay, and go ahead and do that placement line. All right, so now we're just gonna take one piece of the red, have it right side up, make sure it covers that placement line. Just gonna go ahead and tape. Okay, and we'll do the tack down line. Okay, now we'll go to our workstation to trim it up. Okay, so now what it wants us to do is stitch the watermelon decorative outline, okay? Do this red, okay? And it's gonna do a more of a candle wicking stitch, which is kind of fun. Okay, so now it's gonna have us do the inner rind satin stitch, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and change our thread to green. Okay. We'll let that run. Okay, now what it wants us to do is we're gonna do the chenille part, which is probably my most favorite part of it all. And we're gonna take our 3 red pieces, have them all right side up, and we're gonna place them right on top of the entire project, and we're gonna tape them in place. Okay? So yes, you want all 3 layers. And then the next step is to create the channels. Okay, so in chenille there are channels that will end up cutting through after it's all stitched down, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and change my thread again to red. Okay. We'll stitch those channel lines. Okay, so we're going to take this to our workstation and trim. Okay, so if you noticed, it did a little basting box around the watermelon. Okay, so that's what we want to cut around first. So we're going to trim all 3 layers and just trim up to that basting line. Okay. See, these scissors had no problem going through all 3 layers. It's awesome. Okay, so you want to cut that first to get the shape of the watermelon. Now we are actually going to cut the basting stitches, okay? So we'll just hurry and clip those. Or you know what? I'm going to use my little tweezers here. It's the perfect opportunity because it has that blade, remember? And make sure not to cut these, you just want to cut the basting box. Okay. Now for a really fun part of this, we're going to cut through all 3 layers of the red fabric to create that chenille look. So you can use regular scissors. However, I have this handy dandy tool. This is the Clover slash cutter tool, and it looks like a rotary cutter, right? However, it has this guard on here to help protect the bottom layers of the fabric, okay? So what you'll do with this tool is you will get under the 3 layers right here, and you can see kind of where it goes in, and then I the top layers are gonna get cut by the blade, but that bottom layer is gonna be protected, okay? So, and I'm just gonna run it like a rotary cutter. It was that easy. Okay. Done in like 10 seconds, okay? And you can look to see if you cut through all 3 layers. Yep, got those. And there we go. And it protected that bottom layer. So now we get to chenille it up, meaning to create some of that fun fringy look, okay? So again, you can use your fingers if you want to. However, there is a chenille brush that has some, these are a little bit more stronger, more durable, more than a toothbrush. These are gonna really help pull up the fibers of the fabric, okay? And I'm just gonna brush it. And you can create as much chenille as you'd like. Because these brushes are a little bit more coarse. That's why I like it. Okay, so do it in all directions. So fun. Then do it in circle motions. I love it. And then you can take like a lint brush or something to get that all out. Okay. And look how fun that is. Adds more dimension, more detail to the project. I think it's super fun. Okay, we're almost done. So exciting. Okay, so what it wants us to do now is we're gonna stitch the words "You're one in a melon," and then we're gonna attach the loop and the backing. So there's only a couple more steps, okay? So let's go ahead and stitch the words "You're one in a melon." Okay, so feel free to trim those jump stitches if you'd like at this time. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step because I'll just trim those all at the end, okay? So what it wants us to do, let's actually go to our workstation. And what it wants us to do is to take our piece of the trim, okay, and we're going to fold this in half, wrong sides together, and we're going to tape this in the top right hand corner so it's going the same direction as where the watermelon is pointing. Okay, and I'm going to tape this down, and I'm going to tape it real good. I don't want this going anywhere. Okay. Okay, I want to really secure that in place. Okay. All right, and you want to make sure that the fold of the trim is in the center. The edges are on the outside. The fold is in the center. Okay, so now we're going to take our 2 background pieces and we're going to place them right on top with the folded edge towards the center. Okay, folded edge towards the center. And you want it to overlap about 1 inch. Okay, but also making sure that it is completely covering that outer box outline. Okay, so making sure it's getting covered. And I'm going to take a long piece of tape and place it over where those folds meet, because I don't want my foot to catch underneath. I've been there, done that. Okay. Lots of taping for this project. I say be very generous with the tape, because nothing's worse than at this point catching it on your foot. Okay. So I taped where the folds meet, and then tape the whole project down, okay? And we are on our last step. It's gonna stitch the final stitch outline where it brings it all together, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and change your thread to white at this time. Okay, we'll let that stitch. So we're done with the machine now. Doesn't look very pretty right now, but trust me, when we flip this right side out, it will be. So let's go ahead and go to our workstation. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this out of the hoop. All right. Get all the tape out of there. Okay. All right. So, I'm gonna try to take off as much tape as I can, because I can reuse some of these pieces. Okay. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take my rotary cutter and ruler to cut or to trim this out. So what it wants us to do is cut a 1/4 inch away from that last stitch line, okay? We're going to cut the entire project. Okay. 1/4 inch away. Now I want to reduce the bulk in the corners, and so I like to use my Karen K Buckley scissors because they're just really durable and sharp, and it can cut through layers super easily. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the corner here, but also come in at an angle on both sides. This is going to give you really nice corners. Okay. All right. So for the moment of truth, we're going to go ahead and flip this right side out. You see why we did the envelope pocket? Okay. Flip this right side out. I'm going to poke out those corners. So cute. Oh, there's a little trim right there. And the nice thing about the paper tape is it tears away so easily. So I know I have it in the seam here, but I can just tear that away, no problem. Okay. Now, another tool that I like to use is the R&K turning tool. Many of you already know about this, but for those of you who may not, it has a blunt tip at the top. It's kind of like a rounded tip, so then you can easily poke those corners out without risking it going through your project. Okay, so I always like to do that, and I run it along that seam line as well. You can just tell the difference with using it, right? So go ahead and do that. Poke out that corner. Okay. So cute. Okay, you'll give that a good press with your iron and trim up any jump stitches, clean it up or anything, but there you have it. Okay, so now we have that done. Feel free to add the buttons to your watermelon. I think it'd be super cute. You could sew them on, but you know what? I'm probably gonna end up gluing them on just because that's just who I am, okay? But there you have it. That is Kimberbell's May Digital Dealer exclusive design. And it would be the perfect project to gift to someone, give it with a pack of lemonade, or, you know, if anything like maybe a watermelon themed gift basket, I think it'd be super cute. So it's just a fun little size, and there's additional sizes as well that are included on with your purchase of the Digital Dealer exclusive. So thanks everyone for joining me this month, and we'll catch you again next month.